In this demo, we are going to show how to create a webhook for an existing API. Let's consider a system built on one of the most popular e-commerce platforms, WooCommerce. Let's say we have a small shop, and when the customer orders a product, goes to checkout, and finally purchases the product, we would like to get notified in Power Automate with the order details, with the total, with the line items, with the customer information, and so on. So how can we do that? WooCommerce out of the box provides access via REST API. And we already pre-created a consumer key to access the back end of it. Also, WooCommerce has support for webhooks, and we're going to use WooCommerce API to create a connector that will trigger notification in Power Automate when an order is created. So let's get started. We already created a small solution for custom connectors, and we're just going ahead and create new custom connector. Within that custom connector, we're going to enter our website address and the API endpoint used by WooCommerce to provide API support. For the security, we're going to select basic authentication. The names are slightly different. They're called consumer key and consumer secret, so that when people try to connect to use our connector to connect to the API, they don't get confused, because this is terminology used by WooCommerce. And then we just gonna go ahead and create a new trigger. We're gonna call it when order is created. Give it an operation ID. Let's say we want mark it as important, so it shows up in the list of custom operations right on the top when the user select our connector. We can select webhook, and then we're going to import an example of the webhook information. So to create a webhook, we need to post to the webhooks API provided by WooCommerce, and then we're going to import a sample data as required by the webhook. This data includes the name of the webhook, the topic that we want to subscribe to, and delivery URL. Delivery URL is important because that's the callback URL that will be populated at runtime by the Power Platform. And the body contains the parameters that we specified. And what we would like to do, we would like to mark these parameters as internal, because delivery URL will be filled in by the platform. We're also going to specify name order created and make it required, and perhaps give user an option to change it if they want to. We're going to do the same for the topic. And then we're going to give our connector a name. Go ahead and create the connector. So we have the errors. So what we haven't done is we have not provided the webhook response, and the webhook response is going to be the order that we created. So we prepared the order, we copied it from WooCommerce API. This is a sample order that we just pasted in and just imported into the system. So you see it parsed the JSON, supplied and pulled out all the information with all the different fields that are available and will be available to the flow maker. The next thing we need to supply is which one is the parameter that is responsible for the callback URL. And we pick up delivery URL, and as you can see, the warning disappeared because system now knows that this URL will be populated at runtime. And now we can go ahead and create the connector. Once connector is created, we can now go ahead and create a new flow that will be triggered when the new order is created. So let's do that. We're creating a cloud flow, give it a name, new order processing, pick up custom connector. We have WooCommerce connector, we have our trigger available. Now we need to create a connection. We need a consumer key and consumer secret. This information is provided by WooCommerce configuration. So now order is created. As you can see, we can change the topic and the name if we want to, but for now we're just going ahead and create a simple compose step that displays the order details as received from the e-commerce system. So as you can see, all the details are available, including totals and line items, but for now we just capture, let's say, the total of the order. Save the flow. And now we are ready to run it. Let's switch to our WooCommerce system, refresh the webhook information, and as you can see, the Power Platform registered a webhook within the WooCommerce platform with the callback URL pointing to our cloud flow. So now let's go ahead and create order. To avoid the checkout and filling in customer information, we just go ahead and create manual order. Just place few items into the shopping cart. So the order total is 1,110 pounds. And then we just simply go ahead and create that order. So the order has been created. Now let's go ahead and see what happened in our flow. And the run succeeded. And as you can see, we have received the order information and our compose step returns the total. You see how easy it is to create a trigger if your target API does support webhooks. It's just a few minutes and you're up and running. In this demo, we're going to use our existing custom connector and we're going to add a new trigger, a polling trigger that will retrieve the custom orders from the WooCommerce system. So let's go ahead and take our existing connector and go straight to the definitions. As you can see, we already have a webhook trigger created previously. We are going ahead and create a new trigger, and we're going to create a polling trigger. Now with the polling trigger, the request is a simple request that is going to return us the orders in the system. The important part of this request is the parameter after. So it's going to return us only the orders after a certain date time stamp. We're going ahead and mark this parameter as internal. Then we are going to paste a sample order returned by this method. As you can see, the method returns an array of orders. Now, after defining the response, we can configure the trigger. We need to select the parameter that is responsible for the state of the request. So this is after. It controls that we only want to retrieve records after a certain date time stamp. And then we need to select the response property that will be used to populate that value. Grab date created from the order. And the first date created in the sequence is going to be the date of creation of the last order. So any new orders are going to be created after that date. This is exactly what we're after. So now we can update the connector, and after connector is updated, create a new cloud flow. We're going to use the same connector, and we're going to select the polling trigger this time. And what is interesting about the polling trigger is now what we can do, we can tell the trigger not to split the results. So if we have more than one order coming through in the polling interval, they will come back as an array of orders, as opposed to triggering single flow per order. So now we're just going ahead and pick up the compose method, and when we insert the total price of the order, as you can see, the system added apply to each loop because it knows that our result is now an array. So let's go ahead, give it a name, save it. Go ahead and create few orders. And let's create another one. It might take a little bit of time for the runs to appear in the history. The reason for that is that we don't get an immediate notification about new orders. Instead, connector polls the data source on a regular basis. And here we go. So finally the run appears in the history, And when we go in, we can see that there's a full information about the orders created since our last call to the store. And inside Apply Each, there are 2 orders. The first one with the total $599.70, and there is another one with the total $370. As you can see, webhooks are faster and more responsive. Polling connectors, on the other hand, are a little bit easier to set up. Polling connectors do not require special API, and they do allow some batch processing, which could have some advantages when processing large volumes of data.